This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. One of Canada's major grocery chains is being accused of milking its customers. This past weekend, Walmart was selling some of its dairy products for higher prices than provincial law allows. The CBC's Ian Fraze reports.
If you usually grab 1 liter of most types of milk, you're probably used to the price. It's a law set by the province, around $2 a carton. Well, that's what the price should be. Over the weekend, Walmart overcharges customers by around 80 cents. In Winnipeg, up in Thompson, and online too. An advocate for lower-income people says Walmart owes customers an explanation.
It's a large chain. They ought to know the rules. And if they don't, they need to find out how that happened.
We gave Walmart 3 days to respond to our questions, but the company did not respond to us before deadline. However, on Monday, the price of 1 liter of milk was returned to normal. We don't know how long Walmart was overcharging.
An apology is always the first step. It's actually what you do to back up that apology that matters. I think they should make up with it with a very deep discount for a while.
Manitoba's agriculture minister wouldn't cast blame, saying his department is investigating.
So I'll wait for the report to come back and then see what the cause was.
The government could penalize Walmart for charging milk at too high a price. The maximum fine is $5,000. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now, Walmart did respond to CBC today, saying in a statement, the error happened when executing a price change in their system. It says customers can return to the store with their receipt for a refund. A North End community is taking steps to fight back against drug use and violent crime. The William White Community Association hopes to create an anonymous tip line. People will be able to call when they see crimes being committed. As CBC's Mike Arsenault shows you, this isn't the first time an initiative like this has reduced crime in the city.
So this building here has been a known shooting gallery. It's been shut down by the Winnipeg Police 3 different times now.
Daryl Warren says drug use and violent crime are taking over the William White community. He's president of the William White Community Association and has lived in the area for more than 60 years. Recently, he decided to start an anonymous tip line to help combat crime in the area.
People will be able to call into a line and report suspicious activity, whether it be drug deal or somebody breaking into houses or stuff like that.
The initiative is called the Power Line. The association applied for a grant through the Forfeitures of Crime Act to fund the project. The act provides funding for crime reduction and prevention initiatives. Warren says it would give people in the area a safe place to report crime anonymously.
There's a lot of people I was talking to in the community about this are afraid to report this stuff because of retaliation.
There are dozens of vacant boarded-up buildings like this along Selkirk Avenue. Warren says they're a hotspot for drug use and the violence that comes along with it. He hopes the Power Line will help to resolve these issues. The Winnipeg Police Crime Map shows a 17.8% increase in violent crime in William White between August 2023 and August 2024, and an overall increase from 2020 with a slight dip in 2021. Drug-related crime saw a slight increase in 2022, but is back on the rise. Sel Burrows started a tip line for Point Douglas in the 2000s. He says it helped to remove dozens of drug dealers from the area.
Down from 32 to 2. The sense of community that developed, the sense that people, ordinary people, could make a difference in their community, it was massive.
There's a lot of good people that live here, and it's a shame that they got to put up with this kind of stuff. And we're just tired of it, and we want to clean our neighborhood up again.
Warren is waiting to secure funds from the Forfeitures of Crime Act. Once secured, the Power Line will be active. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The widow of a cyclist killed in a high-speed hit-and-run says her family's life has been forever changed. Her voice was shaking as she spoke at a sentencing hearing for the teen who was behind the wheel at the time, saying she not only lost her husband, but a man who dedicated his life to helping others. CBC's Caitlin Gowerluck has more.
Wendy Van Loon's voice shook as she spoke in a Winnipeg courtroom on Wednesday, telling the man who was behind the wheel when her husband was hit and killed on his bike last year how much his actions changed her family's lives. Rob Jenner died while cycling to work in June, a day after his 61st birthday. The car that hit him on Wellington Crescent was going more than triple the speed limit. The driver, 19-year-old Beckham Kenneth Severite, only had his learner's permit at the time. Court heard Severite tried to avoid the crash, but lost control of the vehicle because of how fast he was going. Bike advocate Patty Weens was in court for sentencing and says she hopes the judge's decision will send a message to drivers.
When you get behind the wheel of a car, have respect. It is a privilege, not a right, and treat it as such.
Prosecutors want Severite sentenced to 4 years in prison plus a 5-year driving ban, saying he was going at least 159 kilometers an hour in a 50-kilometer zone and fled the scene. Severite's lawyer is asking for a shorter sentence, 18 months followed by probation.
I can't lose sight of the fact that my client's only 19 years of age, so I think there has to be some compassion built into the sentence to give him rehabilitative time.
Severite told court he's ashamed of himself and how his carelessness caused such a tragedy. He told Jenner's family he's deeply and truly sorry for what he did. The judge will give her decision at a later date. Caitlin Gawryluk, CBC News, Winnipeg.
With all the talk nationwide about patriotism, the threat of becoming the 51st American state, and tariffs, there's little doubt Canadian children have heard some of it, and they may be wondering what's going on. As Deanna Sumanek-Johnson reports, experts say it's an opportunity to start a conversation.
That looks like a butterfly.
It's not a question a parent typically expects to get from their 11-year-old.
When I heard tariffs, I had a feeling that it had to do something with Donald Trump. So I decided to ask Mom because I had a feeling she'd know. Do you work with my school?
She did know. It helps that Harper's mom is also a social studies teacher.
The idea that it is a way to encourage extra growth within one's own country, to encourage people to buy homemade or products that are from their own country.
Substantial tariffs will impose new tariffs.
It's one of the most beautiful words. The world is
Donald Trump's statements on Canada, heard on the news or through social media, may provoke questions or anxiety among Canadians of all ages. This professor of child psychology says if it worries you, broach it with your kids.
Asking themselves how much the tariffs are affecting them and their family personally, and also whether the parents have strong emotions about it themselves, because the more that that's true, then I would suggest talking about it even with the youngest children, even preschool age children.
With teens, she says parents should tread more carefully and not impose their own views.
I'd probably start by asking the teen what it is they've heard, and then I'd ask them what they think about it.
When it comes to classroom discussions, some teachers see this as a moment of opportunity.
I think it's helped students to see that what they're learning in social studies class is actually relevant to the real world. NAFTA, the WTO, the EU, they just see that as something they have to memorize for a test. And now we can relate it to current events.
So where has this happened before in our history? What has that led to? What has been the impact? And what can we learn from it?
Making sense of it together as kids and adults are now living through a tumultuous chapter in Canada's history. Deanna Sumanek-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Time to bring in weather specialist Riley Lachuk. And Riley, I feel like we've said it a couple times, but it's true. One more night, one more day, and we are back on that upswing.
Yeah, one more night to go. In fact, some parts of our province, Brittany, have already started to see somewhat of a warm-up. As that polar jet receded a little bit further north, it allowed just some subtly warmer air into northern Manitoba. So Thompson, for example, getting to -10 this afternoon. Gillam, -11. Compare that to -17 in Winnipeg and -20s and 21s back to the west. looking big picture to really appreciate that we're still under some of the coldest air across the continent. This blob of pink and purple here, this will continue to sink south and in fact has already prompted some extreme cold warnings into parts of the southern United States, which are expecting to see temperatures dipping in some cases into the minus double digits as we head toward the weekend. So our cold is shifting a little bit further south, replacing that with some warmer air here in the Prairie provinces. So yes, one more night of extreme cold warnings, albeit the footprint of this has started to recede a bit. The northern Interlake not in this anymore, or eastern Manitoba. Still though, looking at wind chills, particularly in Westman, minus 40 or colder overnight, looking at a low of minus 28 in Winnipeg overnight tonight, minus 26 first thing in the morning, and Brittany up to minus 15 by the afternoon tomorrow. And then things get better from there, but there's a trade-off. We'll talk about that when I come back in a bit.
I don't want the trade-off. I just want those positive temperatures that you were promising.
I'll try.
Thanks, Riley. Well, the city has added its first zero-emissions bus to its fleet. We'll explain how it works and when you can expect to see more of them on the road after the break. The first of Winnipeg Transit's new electric buses has arrived. The city expects to receive dozens of zero-emission buses over the next 2 years. But as CBC's Cameron McLean reports, the city's electric bus program has already been scaled back.
That isn't exhaust coming out of the back of this bus, it's water vapor. This is Winnipeg Transit's first fuel cell battery electric bus. Winnipeg Transit unveiled the first of 16 zero-emission buses it expects to get this year. They will be followed by 24 next year. Aaron Cook with Winnipeg Transit says it's one of only 3 hydrogen fuel cell buses in Canada.
So we're cutting edge right now when it comes to technology for testing this out. We do have other zero-emission buses that will be arriving this year, which will include the first 60-foot buses in Canada, as well as battery electric buses as well. With $280 million from all 3 levels of government, the city expects to purchase a total of 90 zero-emission buses, down from 100 due to supply chain issues and budget pressures. And starting in 2027, the city plans to resume buying diesel buses. Public Works Chair Janice Lukes isn't sure the city will meet its goal of an all-electric fleet by 2045.
The city would love to have all-electric buses, but unfortunately, unless we have other level of government support, we won't be able to afford them.
Josipa Petrunic with the Canadian Urban Transit Research and Innovation Consortium says looming tariffs on U.S. imports from Canada could cut the number of electric buses the city can afford even further.
Buses get more expensive, and all of a sudden the city that has so much money can buy many fewer buses from what it planned.
The city says the new buses will begin limited service in April after the spring schedule change. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A group of Winnipeg musicians have long loved screaming their music in English. But last year, the heavy metal band Harm decided to try it en français. Their story is the focus of a documentary by filmmaking students in the Create program at Sisler High School.
People always say, French is the language of love. I think it's the language of hate and disdain. I like singing in French. It's so fun, especially doing the metal screaming in French. It has like an edge to it that English just doesn't really have. We all met through school. We learned French because we were all in French immersion. I think this was grade 10 at the time that we actually made Harm.
We made the switch to French music. We were given the opportunity to play at Chicanetric at the Festival du Voyageur. I'm pretty sure we found out about the opportunity through our high school, and we were excited, ready to go, and the only requirements were French songs, and we all knew French. Worked out great. The few originals we had, we translated.
When I first saw Harm play, I felt like it was a very unique, kind of interesting and different kind of music that it's not exactly a genre of music that you see very often in the French music sphere. We picked Harm to win the Chicanetric because they were original in their ways of making music together and presenting themselves on stage. They were different from all the other bands in the sense that their style was different.
I think switching to French has been nothing but a benefit for us, and it has opened a lot of doors and created a lot of opportunity.
It really helped us out, like being able to do stuff in 2 different languages.
Being able to like open up your music and share your music to like such diverse communities and other niches, you know. Ça c'est englouti dans les flammes de l'âme. Playing in a little public park with a bunch of other folk bands is a lot of fun.
Yeah. That was so funny.
But yeah, those opportunities opened a lot of doors to different communities, and I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Being able to play for a wide range of people, you know. I think being in high school and in French immersion for so long, and that be like French is your everyday language there. All of your work's in French, whether you like it or not. Most of the time you don't. I think creating art voluntarily and expressing yourself in French, for me personally, has really opened up the language sort of in a way. I see it in a different way. I see it in a better way than just something that, you know, is tied to school and is tied to learning something that, you know, I kind of got bored of in the first 10 years. But creating art like this and really switching like the medium it's really fun.
Riley, so many of us have been feeling a little stir crazy,
Yes.
cooped up indoors during these very cold temperatures. There is hope on the horizon.
Yes, the trade-off being cloudier skies, so I know it won't be as bright.
It's okay.
But it will be warmer, maybe a little precipitation on the way. I want to show you some stats, though, to do with this cold weather, because this certainly will go down as one of the colder Februaries we've seen. Looking at the average temperature of the month so far, the highs and the lows all combined for the first 18 days up to the end of yesterday, minus 20.5. I mean, we have seen some that have been pretty close to this, namely 2019, 2014 were also very cold Februaries. But comparing that to the historical average, we're about 6 degrees colder than normal February weather for this time of the year. I mean, this number will change a little bit because we are expecting some of those warmer temperatures, but I had to go back to 1979 to find a February that was colder than this one when we're talking average temperatures. So yes, it's not just you, it has been cold, and it's been cold for quite a while. There is change on the way. So mainly sunny, mainly clear skies today. That is changing, though. That's because the high pressure system that was keeping us cold has slipped south of the border, and that's going to allow some of this warmer air in. And as we see ourselves onto the warm side of the jet stream into next week, that is going to do two things. First off, drive a little bit more instability along the jet stream into southern Manitoba, while also driving up our temperatures, allowing some of that southerly air into the province. So I did mention some instability. We start mainly sunny as we get through the first part of Thursday. A little bit of cloud cover starts to build in, and there's a chance that we could see a few flurries into northern Manitoba. Places like Flin Flon, into Lynn Lake, Thompson could pick up a few flurries into Friday morning. By and large, though, we do see a mainly cloudy sky into the day on Friday. Clouds do increase, though, as we get later in the day, and this fueling another round of instability that could bring some flurries to places like Dauphin, Swan River. Slight chance some of this gets into the Red River Valley, but most of this is staying north for now. It's what's coming on Sunday that I'm keeping my eye on for the Red River Valley and most of southern Manitoba in particular. So winds also are a factor as we get into the day on Thursday, particularly the later part of the day tomorrow. We'll see winds picking up, and even into early Friday morning, looking at some of these gusts in the Red River Valley, these southerly wind gusts that will push some of that warmer air in, even up to 60 or 70 kilometers an hour. So windy into Friday morning, waking up tomorrow to minus 26 in Winnipeg, minus 31 in Brandon, up to minus 15 degrees. And then this is that system, Brittany, I was watching into Sunday that could bring us some rain or snow into early Monday morning.
All right, thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
As Riley said, one more night, one more cold night. We have more to come right after this. Stay with us. Canada's plan for a high-speed rail network is picking up steam. The Prime Minister has announced a new high-speed rail network between Toronto and Quebec City. Vanessa Lee now on the costs and challenges ahead.
Today, I'm announcing the launch of ALTO, the largest infrastructure project in Canadian history.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says a high-speed rail network will be a game changer, cutting travel times in half.
It'll stimulate our economy, strengthen the bonds between cities and our two most populous provinces, and reduce costs for businesses.
Fully electric trains would transport passengers at speeds of 300 kilometers per hour along 1,000 kilometers of track, with stops in Quebec City, Trois-Rivières, Laval, Montreal, Ottawa, Peterborough, and Toronto.
For Toronto?
Getting from Montreal to Toronto would take just 3 hours.
I can't wait. It's well overdue. Europe has the high-speed trains, and we really need them too.
The federal government will be spending $3.9 billion on the design and development phase and has chosen a private consortium group called Cadence to run the project, which includes the main operator of high-speed trains in France.
Obviously, having chosen a partner gives us a step closer to project realization.
But after decades of shelved feasibility studies and false starts, any feelings of optimism come with caution. And there are complex challenges ahead, like deciding where the tracks will be laid.
Trying to acquire each and every parcel of land along that corridor is going to take individual environmental review of what the impacts of running a train through that land, but also individual negotiations with the landowners.
The Conservatives' shadow minister for transport calls it yet another promise with no details, with billions spent without laying a single piece of track. The design phase could take up to 5 years. Experts say construction will cost tens of billions of dollars. There is no timeline on when passengers can expect the network to be up and running. Vanessa Lee, CBC News, Montreal.
Delta Airlines is offering $30,000 goodwill payments to all passengers that were on that plane that crashed at Toronto's Pearson Airport on Monday. All 80 people on board survived the dramatic accident that ended with the passenger jet in flames and upside down on the tarmac. Delta says the payments would not impact the passenger rights to sue the carrier. Meanwhile, investigators at the scene started the process of removing the overturned aircraft to a nearby hangar. Lisa Shing reports.
Piece by piece, crews are starting to move the Delta Airlines plane off the tarmac after 2 days of investigations. Inside the terminals, things are getting back to normal. Most travelers also on the move, though some delays and cancellations continue.
Very stressful, but we're heading out at 11 today. Fingers crossed, and get a 5-day vacation rather than 7.
Hopefully everyone's okay. And I mean, there are such things we can't control, so.
On Monday afternoon, Delta Flight 4819, arriving from Minneapolis, crashed on landing and flipped upside down. Passengers scrambling to get out as firefighters doused the flames. Come on! As of this morning, the airline says 21 of the nearly 80 people on board were sent to hospital. 20 of them have now been released.
One of them has returned because of significant head pain and likely has suffered a concussion because of the seatbelt releasing and her falling and striking her head in the plane.
One couple on that flight has retained this lawyer to make sure
that their damages are going to be compensated for as a result of this event that could have been much more tragic.
In a statement, Delta Airlines said it's providing crash survivors with hotels, meals, and transportation, and will soon get customers their baggage. Securing, identifying, sorting, and cleaning all belongings left on board could take a matter of weeks, it said. Now that it appears investigators are finishing their work on the runway, they'll now try to figure out what forces were at play when the plane descended.
You have a point where you arrest the descent, in other words, and pull back a little bit on the elevators to make sure you have a smooth descent. So you have a rate of descent which you arrest, it's called a round out or flare, And that I don't see that.
Investigators with the Transportation Safety Board of Canada say they have the plane's black box and it's in for analysis. Now, trying to find the cause of the crash will take weeks, possibly months. Lisa Sheng, CBC News, Toronto.
The federal government says it's purchased 500,000 doses of a human vaccine to protect against bird flu. The shots are meant for those most at risk of being exposed to the virus from infected animals, like farm workers. Health officials say the vaccine is not for widespread use, and the risk to the general public is low in Canada. Canada reported its first human case in November. The avian flu virus has infected nearly 70 people in the U.S., including one death. There's also concern over the spread of bird flu to other animals, including cows in the United States. A key organizer in the so-called Freedom Convoy that gridlocked downtown Ottawa for weeks in 2022 has been sentenced. Pat King was convicted in November on 5 criminal charges. CBC's David Fraser reports.
A key player in one of the country's largest protests walked into court today surrounded by supporters. Pat King received a 3-month conditional sentence for his role in the Freedom Convoy, far from the 10 years Crown prosecutors asked for.
Mr. King will spend the next 90 days, 3 months back in Alberta under house arrest, and it'd be followed by a period of probation.
He was given credit for 161 days already served in jail. The judge's decision comes 3 years after his arrest, a relief for King and his partner.
I feel, honestly, like a little emotional, yeah. It's been a lot on all of us, on his family, on his mother.
In court, King apologized to the people of Ottawa for his actions and pledged not to return to the city. But he still faces additional charges for his actions during the trial, including violating his bail and perjury, which means he can't speak publicly right now. In 2022, King was a leader and promoter of the protests against COVID-19 lockdown measures and the Liberal government, known for his provocative online presence.
It's game on, boys. Blow those horns. Let them go. Let those horns fire as loud as you can.
The federal government used the Emergencies Act to end the protests. King is the first key figure from the Freedom Convoy to be sentenced.
You might hate Mr. King, you may love Mr. King, but at the end of the day, that is not the role of justice. We sentence people for things that they did in line proportionally with their responsibility.
2 other leaders, Tamara Leach and Chris Barber, have also stood trial and are still waiting for a judge's decision. That's expected next month. As it stands now, King will be on probation for another year after his house arrest ends, but prosecutors could appeal the sentence. David Fraser, CBC News, Ottawa.
There's deep concern in Europe after some shocking new remarks made by Donald Trump. The U.S. president has unleashed a scathing rebuke of Ukrainian president. Trump even claimed Volodymyr Zelensky started the war 3 years ago, not Russia's Vladimir Putin, who ordered the invasion. Anna Cunningham has the details.
President Donald Trump has labelled Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky a dictator. Writing on his platform Truth Social, the US president said Zelensky was a dictator without elections and that he better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Now, President Trump also takes swipe in this post at Europe, saying it failed to bring peace. I think there's little doubt that this will not go down well in Paris, where EU and Western leaders, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, are joining in a meeting. He's joining that meeting remotely, and they're discussing Ukraine's future and security in Europe. This morning, President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Donald Trump was living in a disinformation bubble after comments the US president made last night suggesting it was Ukraine who started the war, a line that has been used by the Kremlin. Take a listen.
Ну, тобто, на жаль, президент Трамп з великою повагою до нього відносимося як до лідера народу, який ми дуже поважаємо, американський народ, який нас постійно підтримує. На жаль, живе в цьому дезінформаційному просторі.
President Putin has also been in front of the cameras in St. Petersburg today. He praised the outcome of Tuesday's Russia-US talks in Riyadh and said Nobody is excluding Ukraine. This is what he said.
Да, мне доложили первое, второе, я оцениваю их высоко. Результат есть. На мой взгляд, сделали первый шаг для того, чтобы возобновить работу по самым разным направлениям, которые представляют взаимный интерес.
Many knew that under President Trump things would be different, but I think those countries, including Canada, will certainly be surprised at just how fast this relationship between the US and Ukraine has deteriorated in just a matter of days. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
Brazil's former president is now criminally indicted for plotting a coup after he lost the 2022 election. Jair Bolsonaro is facing 5 charges. Brazil's chief prosecutor alleges he conspired to assassinate Brazilian President Lula and a Supreme Court justice. Bolsonaro denies the charges. Brazil's Supreme Court must approve the indictment before he can be put on trial. Experts have given up hope of rescuing dozens of whales stranded on a remote beach in Australia. And a warning, the video shows some animals in distress. More than 150 false killer whales were found beached on Tasmania's northwestern coast on Tuesday. Rescue crews attempted to refloat the marine mammals without success. Unfavorable ocean and weather conditions have made saving them almost impossible. Authorities say the 90 surviving whales may have to be euthanized. False killer whales are endangered and resemble orcas. Frightening images of fiery plane crashes have been in the headlines in recent weeks, and it's heightened some people's fears of flying. After the break, we'll hear from an expert on how we can manage that anxiety. Stay with us. Well, as we've mentioned, just one more night that we need to get through.
Yes.
A lot of parents and probably a lot of dog owners that are going to be very happy to get rid of the booties, get rid of a few layers. Just take a breath.
Take a breath. It's like that sigh of relief. As I've said, though, the trade-off is going to be don't expect it to be as bright as it has been, because the sun has been really nice. We've really enjoyed some very sunny days, but we start to mix some cloud in, and with that comes the chance of scattered flurries as well. So it will be a little bit more gray.
It's a give and take.
It is.
And I'm ready
Absolutely.
to take the heat and give that cold back.
Speaking of the sun, I do have a bit of a treat for you. And I just noticed this as I was putting this graphic together for you here. Our sunset tracker. Look at this, my friends. So today, looking at a sunset at 5:44, we spring forward on March 9th. That's now on the map in not too long from now. So by the time we get to 3 weeks from now, March 12th, our sunsets are at 7:29. So it'll be good for those evening dog walks, those evenings outside as we start to get the days going longer and longer. I mean, yeah, we spring forward, so you're losing that hour of sleep, but you know what? I'll take the brighter evenings. Upper level winds. We'll start with that. So we are looking at this cold pocket of air, as I showed you earlier, now sinking way south into the United States and really leaving us with something that's a little bit more seasonal, at least for northern parts of the province today. That's to come for us as we get into the coming days. And this has actually already prompted some extreme cold warnings really across much of the central United States, from North Dakota into the tip of South Dakota and right down into Texas, where places like Dallas are expecting low temperatures in the minus double digits in the coming days. So we are looking at some cold weather ahead. We've pushed it south of the border in place of some warmer air for us here in the Red River Valley. Here's Maddie Bear. This is thanks to Lisa for sending this picture in. This is the late Maddie Bear. Maddie Bear really liked the winters, apparently, and Lisa had to send this picture just to pay homage to that. So thank you, Lisa. You can send your pictures to talkback@cbc.ca, looking at minus 26 first thing in the morning for Winnipeg, minus 15 by the time we get into the afternoon, and then look at as we start to see those winds picking up as we get into the evening hours. South 20 to 40 by the evening, but once we get into the overnight hours, particularly outside the city, we're looking at conditions more like gusting to 60 or even 70. So we're looking at a windy one ahead tomorrow night. Tonight, though, still into the minus 30s for southwestern Manitoba. Wind chills feeling closer to minus 40, down to minus 24 into Dooley Lake, minus 22 in Churchill. A bit warmer into northern parts of the province as we get through the day tomorrow. You'll notice some of these high temperatures, minus 13 for Thompson, Gillam, minus 12 into Shamattawa. Not quite that warm in southern Manitoba. That's coming, but certainly a warmer day than we saw today for many of us, including for Brandon, minus 18 by lunchtime. Looking at temperatures by the afternoon, minus 13 for Brandon, minus 15 for Winnipeg, and yes, even a minus single digit in Fort Francis, Brittany, at minus 9. I'll have your full 7-day coming up.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
It started as a routine flight from Minneapolis to Toronto with 80 people on board. But Delta Airlines Flight 4819 ended with a fiery crash landing. Well, exactly what happened and what led to the incident is still being investigated. Here's a timeline of what we know so far. CBC's Lauren Bird walks us through it.
11:34 a.m. local time, Delta Flight 4819 takes off from the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport after a 64-minute delay. After about an hour and a half in the air, at about 2 p.m. Eastern, pilots get the all clear to land on runway 23 from air traffic control.
Clear to land, 23, Endeavour, 4819.
These audio clips haven't been independently verified by CBC News. The airport had been under pressure all weekend, dealing with 2 heavy snowstorms in just a few days. Winds were gusting up to 60 kilometers an hour at this time.
Reports indicate there was a crosswind for sure, and it was a gusty crosswind of about 10-knot increments.
Earlier that morning, Pearson Airport tweeted, "The snow has stopped coming down, but frigid temperatures and high winds are moving in. Our airfield team has continued their work throughout the night to clear critical areas so planes can safely arrive and depart." At 2:13, the plane touches down on runway 23.
Oh, no.
The plane caught fire. Its wing snapped off, and it flipped over.
We have a huge emergency on 23. Windy crash fire rescue on the runway.
The plane came to a halt upside down. Then came the race to get out.
Drop it! Come on!
The 80 people on board clambered through debris to find their way onto the runway.
That was just a plane crash. Oh my God!
At 2:58, Toronto Pearson says emergency teams are responding. All passengers and crew are accounted for. Police, fire crews, and paramedics arrived on scene. Incredibly, no one died. At 4:33 p.m., Delta says that several people had been taken to hospital, most with minor injuries. Our primary focus is taking care of those impacted. And by 5 p.m., flights at Pearson had started moving again, though 2 runways remained closed. There are still a lot of questions about how and why this happened. An investigation by the Transportation Safety Board of Canada is underway.
Now, that crash happened Monday afternoon. 21 people were injured, but remarkably, everyone survived. It was the 4th major aviation accident in North America in the past 3 weeks. And it's heightened some people's anxiety and sparked a topic of conversation around flying. Dr. Raymond Abdelrahman is a clinical psychologist and joins me now. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, Raymond, is this something that you've been hearing from patients and others in recent weeks as well?
It absolutely is showing up. Anytime there's incidences in the news, it does show up in therapy and with the patients that we work with, absolutely.
So there, I guess, as I said, there have been 4 major plane incidents in recent weeks, including one in Washington that killed 67 people. So are these thoughts normal? Are they rational for us to have?
Yeah, they're absolutely rational. I think what happens is that we see the world in disarray. And I think usually there's a contagion that tends to happen when we see, one bad thing happening in one part of the world and then another bad thing happening. And they may be unrelated, but, I think that there is, an overall level of heightened anxiety in the world today. And watching these plane crashes, it's understandable that people are going to feel anxious to fly. But we want to be careful that, those worries don't lead into significant anxiety disorders or avoidances that start to impact our everyday lives and our ability to carry out what we need to do.
So what should we be on the lookout for? Where do we really start to see anxiety creep up?
Well, ultimately, it begins with avoidance. When we start to challenge, or when we don't challenge our worries, and we start to notice we're avoiding the things that we would otherwise need to do. And in cases like this, a lot of people may stop flying or may not travel or go to work or, commute to work by airline if they need to. And we start to notice that. But also people may start to notice that their thoughts start to race, that they have a lot of worries, that their otherwise everyday life that's not associated with flying is starting to be interrupted as well, too. Some people may also experience panic disorder or panic attacks. And those are things to look out for as well.
Now, I want to say and add that flying is overwhelmingly safe. We know this, especially when we compare it to other forms of travel, but it doesn't really seem to stop that fear for some. Why is that?
Well, usually when things are very dramatic or traumatic, they have huge impact, right? And so we compare, the probability of a flight crashing to be, 1 in, I think it's 11 million. And yet, the likelihood or the probability of a motor vehicle accident is 1 in 366. But because we don't tend to see, very traumatic things happening with motor vehicle accidents on the news and it's not covered more regularly, those things can come and go and we find a way to cope with them. But when we start to witness things that are very traumatic and we're witnessing other things in the world that are traumatic, our anxiety is going to be heightened and we're more likely to focus in and have a selective attention towards that particular thing. And our job ultimately is start to challenge those points of views, with logic and rationale. Because when we are emotional, our rational brain and critical thinking kind of disappears. And so there's strategies that we can use to help, decrease the emotion and try to think more critically.
So, do you have any tips for us if somebody's starting to feel anxious, if they have an upcoming trip, if they start to see maybe a little bit of panic in their loved ones? What are some things we can do to help calm that?
Well, I think it's good to revise the statistics, and I think those are easy to Google, and I would start there. But I think it's also helpful to make sure that we know strategies and tools to manage panic. There's a lot of relaxed breathing. People who are in the police force know about combat breathing. Some of us who do yoga will talk about yoga breathing. There's a lot of other relaxed breathing exercises that people can do, and find online. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is to begin to challenge the worries that we have. The worries that we have are thoughts that move through our heads that are often not rational. They're negative. They're often not solution focused. They're often not realistic. And to challenge those with facts can be a really helpful thing. And most importantly, we want to watch that we're not sinking into small bits of avoidance. And so if we gradually, if we've got a trip coming up, start to think about traveling. Don't avoid that thought. Visit the airport, watch movies about flying, or about movies about flying. Those are ways to gradually, habituate ourselves to that anxiety. But most importantly, make sure that you get the help that you need. If you notice that this is taking over your life, it's very helpful at times to get the help of a mental health professional like a psychologist.
Some very good tips there, Dr. Abdul-Rahman. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Still ahead, he's not someone you'd typically see at the top of a mountain. After the break, how a Toronto man is hoping to reclaim a pretty precious world record. Plus, Riley's back with the last check on our forecast. Stay with us.
So one more cold night, then we start to turn the wheels around here and head the other direction. So -15 A lot better than we were today and the past couple of days, really, across the Red River Valley. The winds do pick up as we get through the day tomorrow, 15 gusting to 30 by the afternoon, some higher gusts into the evening hours. Up to -8 for Friday. Some clouds build in. This does give us a chance of some scattered flurries as we head into the day on Saturday. +1 on Sunday. I'm watching a system that could bring us some rain or some snow, really temperature dependent, as we get into the day on Sunday into early Monday morning with some scattered flurries. Still +2 into Monday, and then temperatures staying around freezing as we get into the middle of next week. A Toronto man is hoping to reclaim a pretty precious world record. Gordon Precious wants to re-break the world record for the oldest person to helicopter ski.
At age 100. He's not someone you typically see at the top of a mountain. Tyler Cheese has our daily lift.
It's a great sport. Keeps you outdoors and enjoying the fresh air.
A ski hill like this one isn't where you'd expect to find someone who's 100 years old, but for Gordon Precious, a thing like age isn't going to slow him down.
Well, it seems that I have attained the age of 100 last May, and this coming May I'll be 101.
Good job!
Woo! Made it.
Precious is training here at Glen Eden in Milton once a week because in April he's hoping to break the Guinness World Record for the oldest person on the planet to go helicopter skiing.
It's a great experience, and I've been doing that for about the last 40 years.
It's a record he's already broken once, back when he was 94 in 2019. But in 2021, a 95-year-old American skier scooped the title.
I'm a little older than he is, so I'll take it away this year when I'm now 100.
And if he can achieve that record, Precious says he'll be celebrating with loved ones.
I suppose I'll have a wee drink of something down in the lodge and a nice dinner.
The record-breaking trip is scheduled for mid-April in British Columbia's Caribou Mountain Range. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Milton.
Gordon, that sounds like a celebration I would like to be a part of.
Exactly. Maybe not the skiing part.
No, I'll join out the après ski.
I'll join the after party.
We'll be there for the après ski.
Yeah.
Here I am with back pain, just getting out of bed in the morning these days.
My back is sore.
Good luck
to
him.
That.
Stay warm. We'll make it through till tomorrow. We'll see you back here then. Have a
good
great
one.
night.